Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I'm Khairunisah Kamsin. We are from Universiti Malaysia Sabah. So today we will present our topic, which is the trade openness and economic growth. So first of all, thank you for giving us our opportunity to join this international conference on social science, humanity and technology 2021. Okay, this is the presentation outline, beginning with the introduction until literature review. Since this is a concept paper, so I will just explain until the literature review part. Okay, now we move to the introduction. As we know that trade openness is the one of the macroeconomic issue that still capture the intention from the previous literature. As we know that the country who doing the trade openness, they are easily or freely doing the economic activity or trade activity among them. So the reason why I'm spread the export and import here is because in this study I want to see in which extent trade openness will give a contribution to the economic growth. So either the export have their own contribution to economic growth or import. Other than that, based on the previous literature, they are usually not using both indicator of trade openness to show the relationship between trade openness to the economic growth. So in this study, I will combine both the export and import to see the relationship between trade openness and economic growth. So this is the problem statement, which is when we look to the developed and developing country, some of the country are grow faster and some are slower. This is when we look to the trend of the trade openness to the economic growth. Other than that, based on the previous literature, it showed that some of the researchers state that there are positive relationship between trade openness and economic growth, and some state that there are negative relationship between trade openness and economic growth. So based on this result, it showed that this topic still lack of the clear consensus on the relationship between trade openness and economic growth. Okay, now we move to the significance of study. Okay, in this paper, we can see that they will explain the better relationship between trade openness and economic growth. It also can give a benefit to the developed and developing country to identify in which indicator of trade openness will have a greatest influence to the economic growth. Okay, so the scope of study it's only involve the developed and developing country. It is because let's say when we look to the developing countries such as Japan, they have a lowest trade openness other than the developing countries. Meanwhile, when we look to the Malaysia, Singapore and Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and so on. For the developing country, they are grow faster than the Japan in terms of trade openness. Okay, now we move to the literature review. When we look to the literature review, there will be a trade openness, export and import. Okay, so basically for the trade openness, when we look to the Makun 2017, they state that trade openness have a positive effect to the economic growth only in the developing country. Same goes to Keho 2017. They also state that trade openness become the greatest influencer to their economic growth with a positive relationship with the economic growth. Okay, now we look for the export and import, which is the main indicator of trade openness to the economic growth, which is by Via Zonglun and Nguyen 2016. They also state that the export lead growth become the major contribution to the economic growth in Asian 5 countries. Same goes to Klasra 2011. They also state that in the long run, there will be a positive relationship between the export and growth. Okay, when we look to the import by looking to the Sharma and Smith, they also state that there are causal relationship between economic growth and export and import. Same goes to Tangga Value and Raja Guru, when they state that the results state that there will be the trade openness become the important link between trade and economic growth, which is the import in the specific way. Okay, now we move to the negative relationship. Okay, for the negative relationship, based on the Ulasan 2015, they state that trade openness didn't have any implication to the economic growth, either in a positive or negative way. Same goes to Sakar 2017. They also state that there is a no long-run relationship between trade openness and economic growth. Okay, for the research gap, in this paper, it showed that as we know that this topic have a mixed result from the previous literature. So to fill the gap from the previous literature, it will look again to the trade openness in terms of export and import and the implication to the economic growth. So this for this paper, it's combined between the export and import as become the indicator of the trade openness to the economic growth. Okay, that's all for today. And then what I can conclude from this paper is in these papers we show that a better explanation between the positive relationship between trade openness and economic growth, and also the negative relationship between trade openness and economic growth by looking to the specific variable, which is the export and import. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.